Okay, so new sugya. Now we're familiar with the concept of lav hanitak la'aseh. We're familiar with the lav hanitak la'aseh. We met it early in the Masechta. It's you go ahead. This is Rabbi Yehuda's shita that the reason why you don't get malchus is because since the act of leaving it over, you're over on a lav, but you go ahead and burn it. Since you can burn it, you're attacking the lav. You don't get malchus for stealing. Why? The Heshiv Gazela Asher Gozal. Good. So, guys, what does it have in common, fellas? The burning of the carbon, the nicer, and the returning of the gazela. In both cases, you have to do the avera in order to go ahead and be mekayim the assay. I can't return a gazela unless there is a gazela. I can't burn nicer unless I create nicer. Good. What about if I could be mekayim the assay? If I can be mekayim the assay before being over the lav. For example, there's a mitzvah's essay if you're in the Beis Hamikdash Tamei, v'yishalchu min hamachne to leave, right? So there's two ways you can look at it. I go in and then go out, so therefore I'm over the lav and then the assay. Or no, I contracted tumah while I was in the Beis Hamikdash, so I wasn't over the lav yet, and I leave. So in that case, I can be mekayim the assay without being over the lav. You hear? You're in the Beis Hamikdash, you contract tumah, you're not over the lav is coming into the Beis Hamikdash tamei. You're already in there. You know what the issur is? Staying there. So if you go ahead and you leave, so here's an example, by leaving, you're mekayim the mitzvah's essay, despite the fact you weren't over the lav. Says Rabbi Yochanan, in that case, you're going to get malchus. Or, either or, what happens in the Torah if the assay is stated before the lav? The Yishalchu min hamachne, the pasuk says, you send out of the machne, lo yutamas machaneim. The assay is stated before the lav. You're ma'anis an isha, v'lo yisiel isha, right? You could go ahead and mekayim the assay. You can marry her before you do it. Again, says the Ritva, in order to lav nitak, it has to be both. Meaning, either you can't do the assay without being over the lav, or the Torah does not say the assay before the lav. If either one is in that, if either one is the box is not filled in, you would get malchus. That's the sugya, okay? It's the sugya. I don't think I know the Gemara great, but I'll do the best I can. You won't know the difference, but you know what? I have to be honest.
Does the shluach hakein fall into that?
Yes, shluach hakein is one of the examples of that, right? Shluach hakein. Good, right? Very good, Hesh. Okay, let's see the Gemara. We're starting on Yud Dalid Amid Beis. Amar Rav Chana, Amar Rav Yehuda, Kol loy saseh shekodmu aseh loikin alav. Any loy saseh shekodmu aseh, that the aseh came first, loikin alav. So there's two ways to learn in here. Here's the two ways. Let's learn the two ways. One, that the assay is written before the lav in the Torah. That's the easy way. The other way is you cannot be over you cannot be mekayim the lav without being over kolo saseh shekodmu assay, meaning that the assay comes before the lav, meaning you can't be mekayim the assay unless you're over the lav. Okay. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan says you get malchus. Okay, this is says the Gemara. Amruloi, they said to him. Now they said Pashtus, they're talking to Rabbi Yochanan. Amrit, if you're going to say that, Amalahu, they asked him, did you say that? They said in your name. Did you say that? Now Rashi says, Amruloi tab Rashi, Acherim sheshamuhu mishmo, they heard it in his name, V'lo mi piv, but they didn't hear it directly. So they heard Mishum in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. They heard it. So he said, did you say that? So meaning, did you continue to hold that? Amal Rabbi Yochanan loy. And it's not that I didn't say it. Rashi says, guys, Amar Amalahem loy chazaboy. I had charata. Meaning, I hold you don't get malchus. Meaning, I hold you don't get malchus. So again, according to the dialogue, according to Rashi, the Talmud, people who heard people who heard from Rabbi Yochanan this memra, they asked him, is it still holding true? And he says, no, I changed my mind. That meaning, even if you could go ahead and be Mekayim the Asay before, you won't get Malchus. It'll be a Lavanitak. Guys, this is very important. The whole sugya is predicated upon the line I just told you. So let's go through it one more time. Again, said Rabbi Yochanan the following. The classic Lavanitak is where you have two things. One, you have the Lav mentioned first, and two, you have the Asay mentioned afterwards. Und zweitens, in order to be Mekayim the Asay, you have to create the Aveira by being over the Lav. The classic case being burning nicer. I don't burn it unless it's nicer left over. I can't return a gazela unless I steal it. Those are two classics Lavanitak where you will not get Malchus. There's a day that what nicer is the Lav Shem B'Maisa. Okay, let's hold that by the wayside. What about two? I'll give you two. One I'm not going to give you yet. One, says Rabbi Yochanan that in fact, that if you don't have those two components, one, you can be Mekayim the Asay even without being over the Lav, or two, in the Torah, this page 104, the Torah says the Asay before the Lav. If either of those two conditions exist, you would get Malchus. Okay, what's an example of that? Let's see. So now, these people heard, they asked Rabbi Yochanan, and he said he changed his mind because he says you still would not get Malchus even if the Asay is said before, or even if you can Mekayim the Asay before the Lav. So, Omar Rabba says Rabba bar Nachmani, not Rabba bar Rav Chana, because Rabba bar Chana is the person who said the memra. Says Rabba bar Nachmani, that's the classic Rabba. Ha'elokim lashon shvua Amra. It was said ukasiva v'katinina, and it was written and it was learned. Okay, now, ksiva v'yishalchu min amachne. That's the Asay, and then it says v'lo yutamu es machaneim, and it says you won't be mitam in the machne. So guys, the Asay is before the Lav. The Asay, v'yishalchu min amachne is the Asay. V'lo yutamu es machaneim, not to defile the machne, is the Lav. Taninu haba l'migdash tamei. Someone what comes into the Beis HaMikdash is tamei. So what do you see? Our Mishnah said you get Malchus. Good. So in other words, this is that what you do get Malchus. Yes, this is you do get Malchus. Elamai time kahadebe. Why did you, Rabbi Yochanan, change your mind? So in other words, Rabba bar Rav Nachmani said, Amra, you said it, and now the question is who you're speaking to. Whether you're speaking to Rabbi Yochanan directly or to Rabba Rav Chana, who mentioned it. It's a machloikis in the Rashi or and the Ritva, how to learn Pshat over here, the Marshal, exactly how to learn Pshat over here. But for all intents and purposes, the mechanics of the Gemara is the following. I have a case of a Lava Nitak that you get Malchus. Either A, that you can be Mekayim the Asay before the Lav, or it's written before the Lav. This is a case, guys. You see the Asay is written before the Lav. Right? V'yishalchu min hamachne is the Asay v'lo yitamu, and therefore, and you're getting Malchus. So you see that says Rabbi bar Nachmani. So why are you having charata? In other words, why Rabbi Yochanan are you having charata saying you don't get Malchus? You guys are here. Why are you having charata saying you don't get Malchus? So elamait time kahadebe mishum de kashalei oinis. Oinis, forcing yourself on a woman is difficult. Why does it say regarding oinis? It says v'lo yisiel isha. It says she should be your wife. You have to keep her. Now, could you have married her before you ma'anis her? Absolutely. Then you do an act of chas v'shalom being ma'anis, and then it says like siyah isha. So the asay can be fulfilled before, it can be fulfilled afterwards. And you know what? You don't get Malchus. That's why Rabbi Yochanan had charata. Because oinis, the fact that you could be Mekayim it beforehand by marrying her, before you megarish her, and indeed, the Asay, guys, it says, guys, what does it say? Loi siye leisha, loi sucha legarsha. So the Asay loi siye comes before the Lav loi suchal. And nonetheless, you're not getting Malchus. That's why Rabbi Yochanan had charata. That's why he had charata. Because again, our boxes are not being filled. I think it's clear, right? Baruch Hashem. Okay, so the Tanya, Oynish Shegirish, an Oynish that goes ahead, Ma'anis a woman, he marries her. Shegirish goes ahead and is Megarish her. Im Yisrael, who, if he's a Yisrael, Machzer, take her back. You're not allowed, Lo Sucha L'Shalcha Kol Yemel, you can't send her away. Ve'ein aloika. And that's the key, guys. Ein aloika, you're not getting Malkus. Even though according to Rabbi Yochanan's memra originally, you should get Malkus, right? Because the assay is before, and you can be kind the assay, again, both components. Right? Im kayin hu loika ve'ein amachse. Is a kayin, you can't laisi, you can't marry a grusha. Im Yisrael hu machse ve'ein aloika amai, leisase shekod ma'aseh hu v'lilki. According to you, what? Rabbi Yochanan, you should get Malkus, and you don't. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan had charata. Okay? So now we're all set up. The rest of the Gemara is going to be to reinstate and say that Rabbi Yochanan should not have charata. He should have held true, and all we have to do now is answer up oinis. We have to answer ma'anis. We have to answer that up. If we can answer that up, then his statement will be true that you will get Malkus in a situation where what either the assay is before or the assay is only if what even if you're going to be Mekayim even before. Okay. Ama Ula says Ula. Let's see Rashi, guys. Ama Ula. High lav shenitik lasehu. Oinis is a classic lav anitak, and that's why you don't get Malkus. In other words, it's not the box that we want to fill in. It's a classic laisase lav anitaku. The ilavlin etuke lave asi, because if the loisiel isha does not come to be metaking the lava loisucha l'shalcha, right? Then hi asay lehavi mitzrich. You wouldn't have to say it at all. Lemichdeve. You wouldn't have to write loisiel isha at all. The ilet chilasai. If it's initially v'loy marsha yisena that he has to marry her, lo yoyma loisiel isha v'nigma meitzi shemra. Don't say loisiel isha and learn out from meitzi shemra. Dichsiv bei nami loisiel isha lo yuchel l'shalcha. Okay, guys. Here's the format of the Gemara. The reason why Rabbi Yochanan Charata is it says loisiel isha, you can't send her away, and you're getting Malkus. So it's an assay before the lav. Okay, what happens if it's a regular lav anitak? Then I understand why you're not getting Malkus. I understand why you're not getting Malkus, right? That's what Ul is doing. He's saying the loisiel isha, right? I don't need it. I don't need this loisiel isha. I can learn it out loud from Maitzi Shemra. And Mela, it's a classic. The loisia is afterwards, and if I can't use it before, it's for afterwards, and therefore it's a classic lav anitak, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan should not have charata. His original statement on the Amid Beis holds true. Because this oinus that caused him to go ahead and have charata it's not the case. It's a classic loisiel isha. It's a classic lav anitak. That's what Ula wants to accomplish. How's he accomplishing it, guys? And this is the thrust of the next half Amid, is he's going to learn from Maitzi Shemra. That makes the loisiel isha extra and makes it a lav anitak. That's what we're going to try to do right now. So says the Gemara. Ama Ula says Ula. Lo yoymar, it should not say loisiel isha ba'onis. The ligmami Maitzi Shemra, right? And Maitzi Shemra again. Maitzi Shemra was the guy who was married to a woman. He's claiming that she didn't have besulim during the 12 months, and it turns out that she lied. He lied. He has to pay not 50 but 100, and he can't send her away. So both in the case of oinis and the case of Maitzi Shemra, you have to stay married. Uma Maitzi Shemra shelo yasa ma'isa, only a dibor. Amrachmana v'loisiel isha. Oinis, where you did a ma'isa like kol shekain loisiel isha. So why do you have to write it? So why do you have to write it? In oinis, in eina inyan lefanov. If I don't need loisiel isha lefanov, right before, right? Because I can learn it from Maitzi Shemra. Fellas, I don't need, once he's ma'anis ha, I don't need the pasuk for that. Madach Maitzi Shemra. Guys, look, eye contact. Madach Maitzi Shemra, which was only a dibur. You have to marry her. Oinis. After you did it, Einoi didn't you have to marry her? So why does it say loisiel isha before? I don't need it. So what if I don't need it before, it's like considered afterwards. So Taya in Achrav, that if he goes ahead and sends her away, once he sends her away, he's being over the lav of lo yosuf l'shalcha. Then what? Then yachse, you return her. So you know what? You know what Ula just did, guys? He restored Rabbi Yochanan. Outside, let's do it outside. Again, once you have the mechanics, I think it goes geschmack. Guys, Rabbi Yochanan had charata, right? Why was this charata? Because oinis is a case of the asay before and the lav afterwards. and it says what? You don't get Malkus. Okay? That was his problem. Good? No, I'm going to make an oinus into a classic lavanitak. If I do that, of course you don't get Malkus. How do I accomplish that? It says Leisia Leisha before. It says it before the lav of sending away. And the answer is, I don't need that Leisia Leisha. I can learn out from Maitzi Shemra that he has to marry her. Madach Maitzi Shemra, he has to marry her. And that's a kasha, Maitzi Shemra, he is married to her already. Okay, we'll see. Madach Maitzi Shemra, that what? He has to marry her, and he didn't do a Maisa, just a Dibor, where he did a Maisa of a Nusa. He was Ma'anisa. Ain't I didn't? He has to marry her. Oh, if that's the case, so why do I use the Leisia Isha by Anis for? That after he sends her away and is over the lav, Beeman not take that by marrying her. So it's a classic lav anitak in your pata. Leisia Isha, meaning not before you sent her away, not after you did the Maisa of Anus. You could have married after you sent her away when you shouldn't have, and you were over the lav. Then Leisia Isha, because I don't need the first Leisia Isha. One more time. Do I need the Torah to tell me if you're ma'anis a woman, you have to marry her? No. I know it from Maitzi Shemra. So why does the Torah tell me that? You know why the Torah tells me that? Because if you're over the lav of sending her away, you have to marry her again. So that's the nitak of the lav. That's why you don't get malchus. But einochinami, if the asay came before, or you can be over the asay without being over the lav, you would get malchus. So Ula restored Rabbi Yochanan, and you didn't have to have charata. How are we doing? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Says the Gemara. Yeah.
He had to do two things wrong. First, he had to be honest her. Then he married her, which he was supposed to, and now he divorced her. That's what the Torah speaks.
That's what the Torah is speaking about. But you don't need to tell me after the Maisa of Onus that he has to marry her. That you know from Maitzi Shemra. So therefore, the Veloisia that it says by her is going on after he sends her away. That's the Kanech of Abi. That's the Kanech. Okay, so now, says the Gemara. Now, guys, the rest of the Gemara, if I can't learn that Onus from Maitzi Shemra, then you're right. It's not a lav anitak. Because then the Leisia Leisha comes before the lav. Right? Very geschmack. If I can't learn out from Maitzi Shemra, that Leisia Leisha stays in place. And it stays in place and it's an asay before the lav. You can't learn out Maitzi Shemra. What's the kal v'chaymer? What was your kal v'chaymer? Madach Maitzi Shemra, which was a dibor, you have to marry her. Certainly Oinus, which is a maisa, you have to marry her. Says the Gemara Dikla Nifrich. Mala Maitzi Shemra, shekain loiku mishalim. Maitzi Shemra, guys, we had earlier like Eidim Zayman. We learned that Eidim Zayman Leikim Mishalim Daftalin on the base. We learned that from Atvi Yisro's side that he gets Malchus not only. So therefore, any kal v'chaymer pircha koldu destroys the kal v'chaymer. So your whole ula, your whole refutation to say that Rabbi Yochanan could still have his din is based upon learning out oinus and Maitzi Shemra. You can't. You know what Maitzi Shemra, guys? You know why he has to marry her? Of course, he gets Malchus. But oinus doesn't get Malchus. Maybe he doesn't have to marry her. Meaning it's going on after that he has to marry her after he does the Maisa of Onus. Ella lo yoyma lo yisiyah leisha b'Maitzi Shemra. Let's go the other way. Don't say lo yaisi mishum Maitzi Shemra. V'ligma yoynis. Let's learn the other way, and you learn that from Oinus. Uma Oinus she'ena loikum mishalem. Yet has to marry her. Rachmana v'lo yisiyah leisha Maitzi Shemra like kol shekain. Okay, guys. So guys, we have two. Look at me. We have Leisi Elisha to play with. Initially, we were playing with the one in Oinus. Now we're playing with this on Maitzi Shemra. Madach Oinus, which does not get Malchus, has to marry her. Maitzi Shemra, which has the chumrah of getting Malchus, ain't Oidin, he has to marry her. Now, so why do you say Leisi Elisha by Maitzi Shemra? I don't need it for that. So I'm going to use it. We're going to use it that way. In other words, we're going to go in this way. Says the Gemara. Very geschmack. Ella lo yomer lo yisi Elisha Maitzi Shemra v'lig mami Oinus. Uma Oinus she'ena loika she'ena loika u'mishalem omer Rachman lo yisi Elisha Maitzi Shemra lo kol shekain. V'lo menemar. Why does it say Maitzi Shemra lo yisi Elisha? Imenu in Maitzi Shemra tnua inyan l'Oinus. Imenu inyan l'Oinus lefanov. Then use the lachrav. Right. If I don't need a lefanov, right. That if I don't need, right? I don't need to tell me lefunov that after he's ma'anasad, he has to marry her. I don't need that lefunov. In other words, loisi al isha before he divorces her. I don't need that because I don't need it because it says it. So why do I need? I have an extra loisi al isha. I have it from Mitzvah Shemra. I'll use it for what? For after he divorces her, and then it becomes lavanitak. As long as I get a loisi al isha after the lav, I'm going to be in good place. Good. Initially, I thought that in the Parsha of Einus itself it's extra. Now I'm saying no, it's extra in the Parsha of Mitzvah Shemra. I don't need it in Mitzvah Shemra, so I'm going to use it for honest. That if he divorces her, he has to take her back, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan would be correct, because honest would not be a refutation of his original, psak. That if it's I say before, written before, or done without the lav, you would get Makos right now. So right now you're holding good. So right now we're holding good. Right now, Ula is holding good. Rabbi Yochanan did not have to have charata. Everything is good. For a second, says the Gemara. In other words, I'm not going to have an extra Leisiel Isha. You won't be able to learn out. I couldn't learn out Einis from Moshe Shemra, and I can't learn out Moshe Shemra from Einis. Why? Dikla mifich malo Einis shekain asa ma'isa. You know why? Leisiel Isha, because he did an action. Moshe Shemra didn't do an action. So right now we're holding. We don't have a limud. If we don't have a limud, then Rabbi Yochanan was right in changing his mind because he right. You're back and forth again. It's like yesterday's Gemara to some extent. Ella, guys. Now what do we want to do? We want to reinstate Rabbi Yochanan's rule because we're going to go ahead and get rid of Anas and say it's different. Ella lo yomer lo yisel isha b'maitzis shemra. Why? Because ishtahi. But guys, what's the case of maitzis shemra? You married a woman. After Nisuin takes place after Eris and 12 months later, you show up. I didn't find by your daughter Basulim. Right? So you married already. So why do you have to say lo yisel if you're married already? Ishtahi. V'lo nemar im eina inyan l'maitzis shemra to know inyan l'oinus. V'emin inyan l'oinus l'fonav where it says lo yisel isha openly to know inyan l'achrav that after he goes ahead and divorces her, it makes it a lavanitak. Good. Good. So right now you're good. Right now it's a lavanitak, and Rabbi Yochanan did not have to have charata. Fred the Gemara ve'ema v'meina inyan l'fonav the maitzis shemra to know inyan l'achrav didei. Let's say maitzis shemra would divorce her. In other words, why are you jumping from maitzis shemra to anis? Why don't I say the following? Good. I don't need the eina anis l'fonav by maitzis shemra. What happens if he divorces her? Why don't I use it for maitzis shemra that Wadi has to take her back? Why do I know ba'onis? Maybe maitzis shemra, right? Maybe in your la'achrav the day delay laka. So it's meinachinami. Einachinami. For us, ainis v'gama minei. You're right. You're right. In other words, guys, watch what happens. Maitzis Shemra has Maitzis Shemra. You have an extra thing. She's your wife already. You don't have to say she's your wife. She's your wife. In Eino Inyan, I don't need it because she's your wife. Tanei la'anis. Fred the Gemara. Why Tanei la'anis? Keep it by Maitzis Shemra if he would divorce his wife. That if he divorces her after he was Maitzis Shemra, he has to take her back. Says the Gemara. Einachinami. You're right. Use it for Maitzis Shemra. And guess what? And now that we have Maitzis Shemra, we'll learn that oinus from it. And Memele will be a lavanitak, and Rabbi Yochanan will be good. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. The aim of Meina Inyan Lefan of the Maitzis Shemra, Shnei Inyan La'achrav, Didei, the La'laka by Maitzis Shemra. Says Veinachinami. You're right. V'yasa oinus v'gam aminei. Right? And learn that oinus from it. Now here's the problem. B'mai gam aminei. How are you going to learn out oinus from Maitzis Shemra? Ikla mifrich kidabarchinan. Malamaitzi shema shekain layasa maisa. Mashenkin there you did. So in other words, I got a problem. Ula, you tried your best through a combination of Einus and Maitzi Shemra to learn to make Einus into what? A lavanitak. And I failed. So if I failed, that means Einus remains a refutation of Rabbi Yochanan's original. Why? Because the assay comes before the lav. Lo yisiel isha. In other words, you're married to her before, then you send her away, and then you. So in other words, I could do the assay, marrying her, before I send her away. and then I can't be menatik by marrying her again. I could, but that lavanitak is going to get malchus because I have no source otherwise. So right now, right now, Rabbi Yochanan was right in having charata because honest would be a refutation. It doesn't get malchus despite the fact that the asay is before the lav, sai in Mekayim and sai in the order of the Torah. Exhale. How are we doing? It's shlavim. It's all. I understand it. So I understand it better now that I gave it over to you. So I'm taking back what I said earlier. I know the Gemara very well and the share is going well. Okay, so whatever I said earlier, just get rid of that. Ella Amarava. Guys, what does Ella mean? Ella, dead end on Ula's Mitzi Shemra. I'm gonna learn that Anis is a lavanitak, is a classic lavanitak. Ella Marava, says Rava, Rashi, Haditanya ba'onis machsiv in a loika, you take it back and you don't get malchus. Taima mishum the al korchach lav shenitak lasehu. It's a lavanitak. It's a classic lavanitak. Why? The amakra kol yomav. It says lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yomav. You're not able to send her away all his days. What does kol yomav mean? Lo havi le'lemichtav. You shouldn't have written kol yomav. Lo yuchal l'shalcha. Just right, you can't send her away. My kol yamav. Why write the word kol yamav? Hachi kamar. Loi tehei b'shiluchecha kol yamav. She should be in the state of not being able to be sent away all his days. El yachzirenu. You have to take her back. And it's saying, stand up and take her back. Hachi kamar. V'loisi el isha im shalcha shlo yeshiluchecha l'chol yamav. Hari hasei acha havaris halav. The assay is after you're over the lav. The assay is kol yomav. In other words, it's not pshat that it's said once and fartig. It's there all the time. The only way to go ahead and be mekayim kol yomav is to send her away. Guys, you're ma'anisa, not you. A person's ma'anisa, yes? You have to marry her. Good, you married her. That's it. Okay, no problem. Now, you send her away. You don't get malchus. Says Rabbi Yochanan, I have a problem. I had an assay before. You have to marry her. Now I have a lois assay and I have an assay. Says Rava, the new assay is different than the original assay. If once you're ma'anasa, it says you should marry her. You know what it says afterwards? It says, meaning, if you go ahead and divorce her, then kol yamav comes along, falls upon you, a new assay of all the days you're not able to send her away. That assay is not like the original assay, where you just marry her once. This assay is constant all the time. And therefore, it's a classic lavanitak, and therefore, Rabbi Yochanan did not have to have charata, because honest is different. It's a classic what? Lavanitak assay. That's what it's saying. Okay? Geshmak. Kol yamav, it's a different, every single minute you have a mitzvah to be, as I say, you have to keep. So let's see it inside. Elam Rava, Kol yamav ba'ameh v'hechzer. V'chein kiyasa ravin am Rabbi Yochanan, Kol yamav ba'ameh v'hechzer. Guys, this is how we knew at the top of the page, fellas, if you want to be medayik, at the top of the page, who was speaking to who? They were speaking to Rabbi Yochanan, and why Rabbi Yochanan says he never said it? What does he say over here? He says over here, I didn't have charata. So, in other words, if he's speaking to Rabbi Yochanan at the top of the page, then you have to say Rabbi Yochanan didn't remember at the bottom of the page. It says over here, Memela, if she is kol yom of therefore, Oinus is a classic lavanitak. And if Oinus is a classic lavanitak, Rabbi Yochanan did not have to have charata. Okay, let's just chaz riba what we did today. Okay, guys? Just chaz riba. Rabbi Yochanan said a rule. He said, "Allah hanitek la'aseh," right? Of course, everyone holds you're going to be potter from Malchus. Okay? Again, we gave an example of Meiser, according to Rabbi Yehuda. We gave an example of Gzela, V'heshves Gzela Shegozal. That's a classic. Has she brought in Luach Cain? Okay. Now, what about this case? If in the Torah it says the lav before the Maisa, before the assay before the the lav. Two examples. One is tuma. If you're in the base of Mikdash Tameh, it says, right, you're supposed to send the person out. That's the assay. Send them out. Don't be matama. Okay? That case, two things. You possibly could go ahead, right, and do the assay before, because if you get tummy in the base of the Mikdash, you run out, right? You weren't over that. You weren't over the issa yet, or the Torah says the assay before the lav. And this is the same thing. Lo yisiel isha lo yuchel shalcha, right? Therefore, the assay is before the lav. The problem is by oinus you don't get malchus. So that goes ahead and refutes the whole thing. That goes ahead and refutes the whole thing. Okay, so Memela, Rabbi Yochanan Charata. Says Rava, Ula tried from Mighty Shemra, we failed, right? He wanted to go ahead, say, only some Mighty Shemra, we have an extra Lysial to play with, we don't have an extra. Says Rava, the assay of La Yuchel Ishav Kol Yomov is different than marrying her. Once you marry her. But afterwards, La Yuchel Ishav Kol Yomov, you're in the state of, you have to take it back, That's the nitak, the assay. That's the nitak over there, right there. So right now, Rabbi Yochanan's in agreement. So he didn't have to have charata, and that didn't stand of his rule of the assay before the lav. Okay. Amalei Rav Papa l'Rava, v'holeidami lavaya l'lav dechasima. So this is not going on back on the previous Gemara. It's a kasha. How could Rabbi Yochanan have said his din that you get malchus? It's not similar to the lav chasima. We said the source of malchus is leisachsim shabedishar. It says malchus and there's leisachsim, meaning you have to go ahead and have a lav. If you do a lav, then you go ahead and get malchus. Over here, you have a lav and an assay, and you're getting malchus. But 1 second, it's not similar to lav chasima. Lav chasima is no assay. Here there's an assay. So you're telling me that the assay comes first and then the lav. You get malchus. It's not similar to the lav of chasima, of muzzling. Okay. Says the Gemara, Amle Papa Rava, let me down the Chasima. Amalei Rava answers a Papa, Mishum de Kasabe Rachmana Asay Yisera, Migra Gora. I don't understand. Just because you wrote a additional mitzvah, it makes it less of a lav? No. If you're over in a lav, if there's a Maisa to the lav, you get Malchus. There's an Asay associated with it. Good. But you're not going to go ahead and say that you're not going to get malchus because it's not saved. It doesn't make any sense. Ihachi lav shenitik laasei nami lema mishum de kosabe rachmana asei yisera migma gara. So guys, you stole from somebody. You left over a carbon. Why don't you get malchus? You're going to say what? Because there's an assay. Good. What's the answer? There's an assay that corrects the lav. And then there's an assay that does not correct the lav. You're not supposed to divorce her. You're not supposed to be in the base of Mikdash Tameh. Right? You go out, you're still with Tameh. You divorced her, you still divorced her. You stole. By returning it was menatik the stealing. By burning, it was menatik the noiser. So it says the Gemara, Amalei, so Rava said to Rapapa, Hahu, that I say by a lavanitak is lenekute lav hudasa. It comes to menatik the lav. It comes to menatik lav, and therefore you don't get malchus. Mashen came with this stamen asay mentioned before, then you would get malchus. Okay, fellas, a little hakdama. How do you view, it's the Gemara makes the Chakira. How do you view the lav of the lavanitik lasei? There's two ways to view it. One, as long as I can be mekayim the lav, the asay, I'm not going to get malchus. I did a ma'aser gazela. I stole. The lavanitik doesn't say you didn't steal. You stole. The guy, you stole. Elamai, you're not going to get malchus as long as you can go ahead and return it. What happens if it would be destroyed and you couldn't return it? Right? You were over love. Yeah? Good. Now, there's another way. Really, I should get malchus right away. But the Torah says you're not going to get malchus. Why? Because you can mekayim by returning it. So one, it's meaning But the first instance, as long as I can return it, even if I didn't return it, I'm gonna get Malkus. According to the second one, you got to be Mekayim it. If you don't Mekayim it to get Malkus, you got to do it right away. In other words, there's no statute of limitations of extending the Gazela. If you could return it and you don't, you're going to get Malkus. Okay. Now, why did you say over here? You just told me that a lava nitak, what? Lava nitak, since it's menatically asay, then you what? Therefore, you don't get Malkus. That would only be good in Svara, according to the Mandiyam who says Bitule Bottle. But Lagon the money, Kimlu, it's a problem. Hanich Lamandiyama Bitloy, that you have to mevatel the assay to get Malkus, and you want to mevatel. In other words, let's say as long as that gazelle is still around, as long as that object is still around, and I didn't get rid of it, then okay, it's menatically assay. El Mandiyama Kimoi V'le Kimoi. The Mandiyama says that what you have to be mekayim it, and you want to mekayim it. Ma'ikla Meima. According to you, why shouldn't I get Malkus? Just because there's an assay associated with it that you should get Malkus. Says Gamidu Taime El Rabbi Yochanan. Who needs this, guys? Rabbi Yochanan, fellas. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who holds that you are going to get Malkus if what? If the assay is before, right? And then says the Gemara that would only be according to Mandiyama Kimoi V'le Kimoi, but Bitloy no. Says the Gemara. El Rabbi Yochanan, my timer, we only need the according to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan Tana Bitloy Chayev, Bitloy Pata. Look, Rashi, top Rashi. Mi did avi timer El Rabbi Yochanan. Mi chutzich lidroish kol yamav b'amid v'hichzir. Who's the one who has to dash in all the days he has to return it back? Rabbi Yochanan. Sha'amar le'sasei shekodmu asei like in a love. The kasha le'oinis shegirish, and he had a problem. Oinish that you sent away. Diktani ain't a like you don't get malchus. For chutzich lasoisle lavanita klasei, you had to make it a lavanita klasei. So he holds what? Right? Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion, right? Ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan l'tana bitloi chayiv, loy bitloi patla. Rashi l'kamon tani bitloi chayiv, loy bitloi patla. Right? If as long as you're not mevatel it, right? Loy bitloi patla. Okay, says the Gemara. So according to this, again, Rabbi Yochanan has the statute of limitations. So as long as you're not mevatel it, you're good. So as long as I'm not mevatel, I have all the days to go ahead and take her back. As long as I'm alive, you're not going to get malchus, right? That's why it was a lavanitak. So in other words, the Gemara wanted to know it only works the svara like the Mandi Amma that bitlay, but the mother kima, you should be mekayim, you're not mekayim, it doesn't work. You know what? Who is the one who needs it to go ahead and be a lavanitak? Rabbi Yochanan. In fact, la yuchel ishachel kol yamav is a lavanitak. Rabbi Yochanan. Why? Because as long as bitlay, as long as not mevatel it, right? I still can mekayim it, so therefore you're not going to get malchus. So the Amar Rabbi Yochanan the Tana, we're going to see in a second. Bitlay chayev bitlay patla. Okay. The Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yochanan, a reciter of Bais is sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Kol mitzvahs loy saseh, sheyesh bo kumaseh. Any mitzvahs loy saseh that has a kumaseh, kayim aseh sheba pata, bittul aseh sheba chayev. Amalei said Rabbi Yochanan to this reciter of Bais. My ka'arme, what did you say? Kayim pater, meaning if you return the gazela, you pater. Loy kayim, if you don't return the gazela, chayiv. Okay. Bittel chayiv, if you destroy the gazela, you chayiv. Loy bittel, but if you don't destroy its pata. 1 second. Right? Bitla, loy bitla. Guys, listen to what you're saying. You're saying the following. You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. What's the inference over here? The inference is, as long as what is around, you pata. Then you say, if you mevatel it, then it's pata. If you're not mevatel it, it's pata. If you mevatel it, you chayiv. Says the Gemara. One more time, guys. One more time. Inside. Tani Tana Kamei Derev. Kol mitzvahs le'saseh sheish b'kum aseh. Kayim aseh sheba. Let's say gazela, guys. Gazela, guys. You return the gazela. You pata. Good. Bittel aseh sheba. Let's say you go ahead and you destroy it. Chayiv. Amalei, my ka'amrit. What did you say? Kayim pater, if you return it, you pater. Loi kayim, if you don't return it, you chayiv. Is it still around? Guys, is it still around? Yes, you just didn't return it. Now, bittel chayiv, mashma, if you destroy it, you chayiv. Loi bittel, even though it's still around, you pater. Your inference doesn't stim. Says the Gemara, Tani bitloi v'lei bitloi. Einachinami, learn bitloi v'lei bitloi, don't learn the word kayim at all. And therefore, that's how we know, fellas, initially, that based upon Rabbi Yochanan holding bitloi v'lei bitloi, therefore, kol yomav b'amid hechzer, and mela it's a lav hanitak, and then mela, Rabbi Yochanan does not have to have charata from what? From his premise. Shimon Lakashemer, kima v'lei kimloi, he says kimai v'lei kimloi, and we're going to speak about the machlokes. We'll speak about it tomorrow. Okay, at the bottom line, Rabbi Yochanan's original statement still remains intact. I say if it comes before, or you can mekayim it without the lav, you would get Makos.